Welcome to Isn't It Obvious, where things are obvious. That's going to be the intro.
That's going to be the intro forever now.
Right. I'm not going to participate in this open.
Too late. You already...
Now it's the cold
You've
open.
already... Oh my god, you're the worst. You've already done... Anyway.
What?
Alright. What? I don't even know. Alright, welcome to Isn't It Obvious? I'm your host, Sera, here with Phil and Micah, as per usual.
As per only.
Do you get... Well, okay, I have two topics. I wasn't sure which one to pick, and I was actually going to ask you this before we started recording, but
nope, because we can't bring good topics, as clearly the interregnum proved. Phil.
Do you want a serious topic, or do you want to...
You pick your heart's content.
Lighter?
We are not here to dictate the topics you give, or else this would
well,
be a different
fine,
podcast.
with that wishy-washy bullshit
That's not
answer,
wishy-washy,
you're
it's you fucking pick. Nothing wishy-washy, but you make a decision.
Fine, I will pick.
All right.
I will pick the dark and sad
Sure.
one. You guys will fucking
I don't
like
know
it.
how it gets darker or sadder than topics we've already discussed.
God, I'm so mad right now. Okay, isn't it obvious that religion is a net negative for humanity?
At this point, absolutely.
Phil's, oh shit.
Uh,
Phil's the only one of us who's actually maybe
700 years ago,
spiritual.
when there wasn't a central government in a lot of states, yes, religion was important because it did give a sense of higher authority and community to groups that otherwise would not have had such a thing.
Sure, and I would agree that yes, that is true.
And we have certainly passed the point of diminishing returns.
But yes, I'm saying it's a net negative.
No, at this point, no religion does good in this world now. Period.
May I ask you a question?
Oh, I think they do good. I just think it's a net negative.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's good they do, but it does not outweigh the bad.
What examples of net negative can you present?
All of Catholicism.
I just read it. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. Besides that.
Pretty much all of history. Just look at, just crack open a
great
history
majority of Islam.
Okay, wait, alright. First of all, when I said fuck you,
Okay,
Michael, I meant like, yes, you're right, good point, and then move on.
Do you want a specific example? Because recently, in the news, and this is what spurred this topic, I was reading about fucking German nuns selling boys to priests and other public officials for disgusting acts. Just horrible, it was the worst story I've heard in a long time. And this is just fucking par for the course. Like, this is straight out of, like, QAnon's creepy, rapey child pedophile ring theory, except in real life, and it was the fucking Catholic Church. Like, what the actual fuck?
I go back to my other statement that there's nothing good about Catholicism that happens in the world now.
I feel like there is good. It just doesn't outweigh the bad.
What good does Catholicism do?
Well, not Catholicism, religion. Like, but Catholicism
but
falls
I'm talking
under
about
that.
Catholicism specifically.
I'm just getting like hammered here. Like, oh yeah, well, there's some good.
No.
What about Catholics? Not them,
I'm
but
talking
other
about
ones.
religion, but Catholicism falls under that umbrella, so this does apply to Catholics, or Catholic religion and Catholics.
No.
Whatever,
There's a difference between Catholicism and Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Christianity is the big umbrella. Catholicism is one person
No, the
standing
big
under that
umbrella. No, the big umbrella is religion.
No, the big umbrella is monotheism. Because monotheism and polytheism are two different umbrellas.
Religion. I am talking about
All of it.
So you're talking about the rain cloud.
The rain cloud, the sun god, the morning star.
The rain god.
whatever. If you want to go that far with this weird metaphor that doesn't really matter, sure, yes.
Well, what?
Yes,
No. This is the artwork for the YouTube video. Artists, get on that.
Boy.
Sarah.
Nope. I refuse.
Can't just...
But when dealing with religions, you do have to break it down into like the monotheistic and polytheistic, because there is no monotheistic that is not Abrahamic in its origin that exists on a massive scale now. Correct?
True, I think.
Because I don't even think Scientology... I mean, Scientology isn't a religion, it's a cult, but they aren't even
Religions are just big cults, but I would consider cults under this umbrella. I would consider any weird...
Because if you look at money in
bullshit
and charitable action output, Scientology is actually the most efficient in terms of the good they provide for the most amount of people for the money they get in on a yearly donation. They are not lying when they have 80% of their donations go to charitable goods around the world, but it's still a fucking cult.
I would disagree that monotheistic religions are the umbrella. I agree with Sarah because, you're kind of excluding Hinduism and Buddhism and Shintoism.
I wouldn't.
They're all part of the
terrible in their own
same
ways.
issue where organized religion tends to attract some rather dishonest chaps and
Authoritarians.
Both.
Because religion is the authority, and people who abuse the authority for their benefit are authoritarians.
That's part of it, but there's also other bad actors who aren't necessarily in authority in
Like
any member of a church. They don't have to necessarily have a position of they
no,
don't
but
have to
they
be
prescribe to the authority instilled by the church. They feel there is a hierarchy,
but
and they are the lowest totem pole of it, or
maybe,
on the
but
lower
they still
end.
can,
And
they
even in
still
that,
can
you
commit
still have
terrible, but they can still commit terrible acts in the name of their religion.
correct. But those higher in the religion establishment with more authority have greater abuses.
Yes, because they have more power, but that doesn't preclude the ones who are lower on the totem pole. Yes,
I think that, do you feel like you might be entering a trap where because there's one bad example of something, therefore they're all bad? All wigs are bad because the wigs that I see are bad. You only can log the data that you recognize, but not log the data that's elsewhere.
No, you can log all that data, but any bad input is going to override more good input.
Well, the thing is, though, our brains may not be balanced in this approach. I'm defending Catholicism, son of a bitch, you guys, but here it goes.
Go for it.
You know, they do a lot of good for a lot of organizations. They also, like the Jesuit branch is probably the one that I agree with the most. I mean, they seem to actually understand the theology of it and somehow wrap the paradox that it's all bullshit. And they still can argue that this is ultimately a good thing to have faith.
But do the Jesuits prescribe to the papal hierarchy?
Yes,
or
of
are
course.
they a different offshoot?
No, they are. They're part of the Catholic group. I mean, the current pope is of the Jesuit branch.
Well, I'm not saying that religion can't do good things. It absolutely can, and it absolutely does. I think it does do good things. Sometimes. But what?
In the past, they did good things. Now they don't do anything.
Things now. They do. They do.
From the
do
historical
good things
perspective,
now.
it is real hard to look at
But
a thing
that's
that
what I'm
Christianity
saying.
does good today and be like, that is
if-
good.
if
When you
we're-
look at
and
the
maybe
last
this is-
80 years of, all this is real bad.
Maybe this is the wrong way to look at it. If I'm looking at it with a sliding scale, and you have the good acts on one side of the scale and the bad acts on the other, it is very clear that it is the bad acts that are weighing more here.
You also, in the bad acts, have bad actors using the religion to justify their bad actions. And that also skews it in the bad scale.
Yes.
It might not be quite fair to religion in general. You could make an argument that organized religion is just fucking terrible, which I won't be able to defend.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that...
Thanks, Mom.
Yep. Also, thanks, Mom, for converting me to Catholicism.
Shortest episode ever.
But the other side of it, too, though, is that it kind of... To me, it's hard for me to hear this because sometimes people have an argument of, well, I don't like this person of color, this entire race, because I had a bad experience a few times, and I can catalog this experience. It's very real to me. It had great detriment to me and my family. And every time I go and see these types of group of people, it's just the worst. This whole group needs to be reformed. And it kind of makes me really sad to hear that because they're in their opinion, again, people are pattern recognizing machines, and they had some bad data points. And you can't just argue, oh, you're just ignorant. It's like, that's not right to say that either. You don't want to trivialize their experiences. And again, any data that they're going to look at now is going to be viewed in that lens. Any data that says, well, I guess that guy isn't so bad, they're going to dismiss, because at a certain point, they're going to trend this bias towards that way. And no amount of arguing is ever going to change. In fact, it would probably make it worse. They're probably even more entrenched if you bring them data. Suggest that, hey, you know what? Not only are you wrong, your personal experiences are wrong. And I could prove it by this stack of statistics I'll put on your desk. And I doubt they're going to be like, oh yeah, Philip, you've enlightened me. I guess this group of people are actually nice.
Very true.
No, but dealing with the grand prejudice of a group of people based on skin tone or country of origin is more skewed towards a superficial experience as opposed to someone saying they are a Scientologist or they are a Catholic, because that takes action that they participated in.
I can sort of argue that a lot of people are the religion that they were raised to be.
I would say that.
That's like you are a person of whatever country.
Yes, but
like,
you,
yeah.
Phil, also say you are a recovering Catholic.
Yeah, I'm not an atheist
So
because I'm a
you can see you had the actions of Catholicism in your youth that you followed and believed in, but
No, let Phil tell you what he is. I think he's going to say something a little
I
different.
agree with the premise that like I wouldn't call myself a Catholic, but the lowest I can get is recovering Catholic. Like I can't branch out so completely because the brainwashing is that strong. People of greater fortitude and mental strength and constitution could say something like, "I was born in the Catholic Church, and you know what? Fuck them." And that's fair enough for them. But for me, it's really hard to do that. I cannot separate it completely. It's part of my.
But you don't ignore the negative actions of the religion you follow. You accept and you still believe, but you aren't ignoring the crimes that they committed.
It's true, but to say that you make your choice and live with it, if you're a kid and you didn't get to choose.
No, I'm not saying that it's you make a choice and live with it. It's a matter of the snap judgment, that quick assumption of someone. So you brought up that you had a bad experience with someone of a particular race, and you now attribute that to that entire race. That is far more ignorant than someone saying, yes, I'm a devout Catholic, and you judging them based on that, because being a devout Catholic takes actions that being a member of a race does not.
I agree with that scale, but it's not that fair, because, again, the brainwashing is terribly strong, and
that's true.
I think that
and religion
you don't
is
really
community.
have a chance as a kid.
No, but the community is more important than the brainwashing. That sense of you roll into any town and you find the Catholic Church, you're of accepting people because you have that shared faith. I think is far more insidious.
It's so insidious to me that if I ever go to a different church, I consider them to be like a derivative. This isn't really a church. This is kind of like an offshoot of a Crazyville of Catholic.
But the Catholic Church I go to, straight and narrow.
Exactly right. This is a problem with the programming that I cannot completely deprogram myself. I bet Mormons have it fucking worse. You know, I sometimes look at the statistics of being...
There are times where I want special underwear.
You can still get that on Amazon. Okay, anyway, the problem here is...
But I have to believe in it, and that's my difficulty. That's why I'm an atheist, because believe is just no.
Sometimes you just gotta have to start when you're young, piano or violin, or if you don't get it with that special age.
I was a very devout Lutheran, which I think is oxymoronic in itself, but...
I was
hookline singer. Yeah. Until it was like, oh, what is Heaven's Gate?
There was no
that's a weird
satisfactory answer.
And then sitting in church where everyone is giving the same response, I'm like, oh, this seems culty. Is all religion culty? All religion is culty.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
And then I became an atheist. Because it's like, there is no God that would want this type of fractal want of praise. It makes no sense.
I don't know that that's true. I feel like the God of Christianity would love that kind of praise. He's a very selfish and capricious...
Right, but he would not want a delineation of who he perceives himself to be, because he is that petty. And I say all this and petty because the Christian God is incredibly human and flawed. At least when you dealt with the Greek pantheon, they were flawed because they made humans, and the flaws in us are reflected in them. That made sense.
Well, anyway, I'm not really... I guess my premise here wasn't necessarily a critique of any one religion. It was a critique of all and the net.
Well, yeah, I gotta fight with what I know, though. I can't exactly critique a lot of Islam, apart from anyone who believes only the patriarchal lineage of Muhammad has a right to speak about their religion is bad.
Well, wait a minute. That's not how it goes. Second of all, I have no idea what I'm talking about. So add that together, and I shouldn't say anything at all.
The split is who has the right to interpret. It's very similar to the Lutheran Catholicism. You need educated people to interpret the Word of God. That's the Catholic point of view. In Latin. But the Lutheran point of view is everyone can have their own personal interaction with God, because it is distilled down to a common language so you can understand what the Word of God is as a layperson. It is who has access to the knowledge of God. One is exclusionary, one is inclusionary, and that is the divide. And it's the same divide between Shia and Sunni. And this is a gross simplification. So any Muslim listeners, I apologize for my ignorance, but that's what I always delineated to, because I'm a white, raised Lutheran American, so...
But this is also an indictment of our public education system.
Oh, yeah, it really is. I experienced that shit in college.
Let's not put it all on education, because there's a lot of religions of the world. And I hate to say it, you can spend years and years studying one religion. You don't have time to study all of the religions of the world and be an expert on all of the religions of the world.
Can we just support Jehovah's Witnesses? You don't celebrate anything, but you have all of Catholic guilt.
Okay, Sarah, so answer the question about does it seem to strike the similar chords that I could say this person of color did me wrong a few times, so therefore all persons of color are bad. This religious and the people that are religious, I have examples of them being just terrible. So therefore, they're a negative value altogether for the world.
Where I would disagree on your premise is one individual as a representative of a race is ignorance. That is wrong. When you are critiquing a religion, I'm not just calling out bad actors in religion. I am also calling out the religion itself, the words themselves, the books themselves, the things they're teaching us. That is what I'm calling out as part of the net negative. It's not the people necessarily. I mean, it was made by people. Let's be frank, it was made by people. But it's not that. It's also the hate of women, the hate of homosexuals, like anyone who has a different, like anyone who's not male and of that faith, who doesn't have power. Hold on, Micah, I have one more thing to say. And then you can speak, I'll let you. It's all about control of people beneath them. And that is what I think is part of that net negative. Yes, Micah.
Can we test this in our lifetime by memification and making Dr. Seuss his prophet, Dr. of Seuss, and use all of his... Because most religion boils down to a monopoly of morality, and that they can dictate how society is supposed to function because they have a deity.
It's all about control.
Yes, let's do that for Dr. Seuss. A lot of his books are morality tales. Let's just make them deified.
Let's not make a religion
No, let's do
out of
it.
this.
No, let's test it.
No,
let's test
I refuse.
it. Can we have
I'm
thing 1 and thing 2
bad.
are the ones that died on the cross?
No.
For the glorious cat in the hat? You never know what's in that
Absolutely
hat.
not.
It could be salvation.
I will disagree that most religion is a monopoly of morality. Most religion today is the concept of the Godhead. That if you can achieve a certain level of self-actualization, you too can be entering a state of not just nirvana or bliss, but
how does that work in Catholicism?
It works in Catholicism. It works because the concept of
what is the Godhead of Catholicism beyond the tithe?
You
and
believe
regular service?
that Jesus died for your sins,
and that if you
automatically get to heaven.
Can the Catholic fucking speak? Because we need
one. No,
okay, well,
we clearly made it accurate.
Shut up,
that
Micah.
Catholics can't
Let
speak.
the Catholics
Let
speak.
the Lutherans dictate what Catholics can say.
I was going to say we're going to have to call in a friend because there's no fucking Catholics here. And I am just the guy. No, as a recovering Catholic, the idea of the Godhead for Catholicism is that you eat the body of Christ, you drink the blood of Christ.
Cannibalism and vampirism.
Yep.
All right, fair enough. But the idea that you too, with enough money, can become God too, right? Like,
no, because that's
not the promise.
No,
that's not the promise.
That's evangelical.
You can't be God.
No, that's the idea that if you consume the flesh of the Son of God or the Son of Man, you also can aspire to be this person that is game theory crazy, that you turn the other cheek, that you decide to say, yes, I'm going to rebel against the system but still work with it, that you're going to be passive and that you're going to be a sheep to the slaughter. And this is against human nature to do this. This is against
But it's not if it was 500 years ago and being a farmer was not only your lot in life, but literally the only thing you could fucking do.
No, it's the same as it was 500 as it was thousands of years back, where eye for an eye is the most stable.
So you're saying that advancements in technology have not
tit for tat
grown in religious disassociation. The
Advancements...
fact that with increased modernity and with increased ease of existence, that religion has not found it more difficult to gain new followers.
I'm trying to parse what this is.
Yeah, what, Micah?
So, an increased in ease of life, which we have with modernity and the technological innovations we've had since the Industrial Revolution of the mid-1800s, has made...
so technological boom, right?
Yes, has made devout religious practices more difficult to sustain in this daily life, because it is not we're not just meat for the grinder to keep the same system that existed 1,000 years before us going, because that's all the technological advancements we have.
Yes.
Because life is easier. It is harder to be devoutly religious, and it's easier to be an atheist because you don't see the mysticism of religion as fact anymore.
Kind of. I would agree with that, but my belief of why people are more atheist than usual is because
We haven't suffered enough.
well, no, it's just that money has replaced the concept of God.
Yeah, that's true.
I had a priest that, and again, it's not that I don't like Catholics, I just fucking hate Catholics. The idea, or let me rephrase, I hate the Catholic Church, but I think Catholics in general, some of them are rapists, some of them are criminals, but
But there's good
some of them
people,
are
I'm
good
sure.
people, I'm sure.
On both sides.
Okay, but
There were good rapers and there were good rapees. Both sides.
Oh my
we don't
God,
talk about we're gonna move on. So
Move on.
what the Catholic
Remember,
priest
you guys wanted my hot takes. So.
had told me was that if you pray for something and if you think about something incessantly, if you talk about that thing, if it's always on your mind, if you value it and cherish it above all things, this is the concept of a God. It used to be in the past that you would care about what would Jesus think and what would Jesus do, and we want to be like sacrificial lambs because that's again very against human nature. But now in our modernity, what people think about again is money. I want to have more. I want more of it. What am I going to do with it? Most of my conversations are about money itself or hobbies that need money for it. I care about money greatly, and now I'm going to switch to my personal life a lot because it pays for security, it pays for the things I need. And this is kind of why, in his belief that that money talks, that money is unfortunately the God that people have belief in, because money is very basically faith-based. What the hell does a dollar bill really mean?
So money being the root of all evil, religion is the root of all evil?
Not necessarily.
Well, actually, in a way.
My rebuttal to this is, at what point did the Catholic Church start requiring a tithe?
Almost immediately.
Yeah, immediately. Because they needed to fund.
But that's not out of the goodness of your heart of the Christian sacrifice. It is now a forced.
It's not. No. It's giving to. It's basically like a tax. What a tax should, in theory, be. But it's not a tax. It's a gift. But it's
a
the reason they
the reason
they wanted it was because they had things to offer the people, but they needed funding to do that. Yes, Phil.
But the reason why is that it was more like a pardon or an accepted forgiveness. So
that's garbage.
No. We're not dealing with what led up to the Reformation.
Go ahead,
you pay off your sins.
No, it's not that. It's more like, it is that. I mean, obviously it's everything you guys are saying. It's corruption. But the idea of this is that if you read the teachings in Christ, it's really hilarious.
You haven't seen the Bible alarm clock that just like wakes you up with Psalm 3:16?
It's really about giving all of your wealth to those that need it. All of it. I mean, Jesus wasn't a very rich man. He was basically just going to home for food. And people loved the guy, so they gave it to him and his disciples. But the idea that all of your worldly belongings are not really what matters in the spiritual life of things. Again, really anti-animalistic, anti-tit for tat. And this is the type of behavior you really kind of want to encourage. If you're trying to raise somebody up from the ground up and you want to instill values in them, do you really want to teach them tit for tat? Because that's a really shitty teaching method, right? Like that's a really crappy.
Disagree. That's a great teaching
No,
method,
it's beyond. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to just teach you survivalism. Well, why? It's not about a why. It's about a how to survive, and that's it. But for the Catholic Church, for Catholicism, the idea is that you're supposed to give away all your belongings. And so the idea that you go to heaven and then there's St. Peter and he's trying to get you in. And he says, so do you really believe in the good book? And the guy says, oh, yes, I believe in talking pigs. I believe in talking animals. I believe in the snake. I believe in all the stuff, even the inconsistent thing. And the guy's like, okay, well, did you give all your belongings away? Because that was a pretty big thing in the Bible, yeah? In the New Testament. And the guy's like, oh, well, that was a metaphor. Like that's the joke. The person will believe in everything except for that. So in order to alleviate this kind of guilt, like it's very clear that you're supposed to do this, but obviously we can't because we're not just crazy people. The church is like, well, you know what? We know that it's not possible for you to give everything away. So giving this amount away is kind of the middle ground so that you don't feel the guilt of saying that you follow the ideas of the better version of game theory. But
that sounds like a terrible representation, but okay.
But also,
wait a minute. How is that a terrible representation?
No, but doesn't that also inherently favor those that have more than those that do not? So
Who
you are still
instilling
a class
church
system within your religion.
You're giving this wealth to the church, right? This wealth is going straight to the church. What is the church going to do with that wealth? They're going to buy stuff to further the church's agenda so they can get more money, more followers, more power.
I'm not arguing against the corruption side of it, but I'm arguing about the philosophy side of it, right? Like it's really there are always
the philosophical side. You do not need the religious side anymore. You do not need the belief in a deity if it is now just a philosophical thing. If it doesn't
True,
have
but
practical application in this
the religion
civilization.
did help back then. The religion did help back then.
Because it was a power source. If we're looking at it from a European perspective, after the fall of Rome, there was only the church. There was no idea of a central government when 70% of Europe had a central government of Rome.
The church was the community. The church was the school. It was the education. It was also the hospital.
It was the state.
But there's also the academics as well. There you have your mathematicians, your theologians.
So that's why they needed money to have the resources to provide all those services. That's what I think the tithe was really about. First
of all, no one's voluntarily going to give money for nothing.
Exactly.
But with this
they are if their souls after they leave this earth are being judged by that because they don't know any better.
There are a lot of hooks about how they got money. But I'm not going to argue that, because...
And this isn't even what we're trying to argue here. I'm not even arguing this. This wasn't even the question.
But the idea that, but they're corruptible, so therefore they're all bad.
My hatred of religion trumps all in religious conversations.
No, it's not because they're corruptible. They're all bad. I'm saying that it's a net negative.
It's not that they're
corruptible.
I'm not saying that
there
isn't
inherently
corrupt. There is nothing good about a religion. It is all inherently corrupt because it's all a power grab. No part of religion is good, period.
No, I think there's definitely pieces of religion that are good.
What?
Like the morality, the ability to say...
Well, no. The morality you can have without religion.
That means you have to abide by those things. It is
the morality
is merely power. It is power and enforcement of power over a populace.
It's not just that, though. It isn't. Yes, you can have morality without religion.
It goes into the next life. It's not just this life. It's not a law that people that alive can
that's a good thing that religion does, is it provides some people with comfort. It gives them hope when they have none. It gives them some security that may not actually exist in reality, but it does give them something to hold on to for something better in the future. When I don't think everyone needs that, but I do think there are people who do need that. And I think that is important, and that is a good thing religion does for individuals.
A false sense of security.
Sure, yeah. I think that's a good thing.
Instead of having actual security, we'd rather just prescribe
actual
a false
security
sense of security
would be better, but when you literally have nothing else...
A false hope is better
than
than
your fellow man. Is that not what the primary crux of Christianity is you're meant to care for your fellow man?
No, you have nothing else. You have no one to help you. You are in a fucking foxhole right now.
So, you as a man are an island.
When you as a man are an island,
in a
situation
where you have...
is a man an island? And I don't mean this as a sexist thing, I just mean as an individual.
Yeah, I know, I gotcha. When, say, you're in a really tough time in your life and you just, you don't have any friends or family that you feel like you can turn to, what do? Do you just give up? Or could you maybe find hope and faith or something to, bring you out of this?
But if you're only going into faith without communicating with other people in order to maintain this island metaphor, then you aren't gaining the benefits of religion.
No, that's not true. I mean, even though we live in a society where... Even though we...
That's my line.
We interact with folks, the way that in my belief, the modern life works is that money trumps all, and you can very quickly get into an island situation where nobody cares about you. Because if you don't have anything of value, if you cannot produce anything, if you cannot support a service, then you're worthless. And once you're at that level, it's very easy to be cast aside by everybody. And even though you might be in a popular situation, or let's just say, even though you may be in a crowd, you're probably alone. And that happens, I would say, for men and women all the time here in this great nation of ours, where they're just, even though there are services and money floating around, our values are money first. And in that type of environment and those type of conditions, I can see people being an island pretty fucking quickly. It's like we live like we're Ferengis. That's it. And if the only thing you fucking care about is money, then what are you going to do?
Lore of Star Trek, and I don't know the analogy of Ferengi, because I thought they've always been just opportunistic mercantiles that was meant to be an analog for Italians. But then that itself seems racist because, they always speak with their hands.
They do listen with their ears.
Do they? Is that how you listen? Phil, tell me right now.
No,
do you listen with your ears?
They have very large ears. Okay.
God.
No, I was going to say, it's very easy if you're all alone by yourself and that religion can give you a false hope, which is way better than no hope at all.
Is it though?
Yeah,
Is
why not?
a false
Maybe.
hope better than no hope?
False hope gives
Probably.
you...
Didn't we have this discussion before?
Right.
Probably, and I'm still on the side that no hope is better than a false hope.
No.
False hopes are bad.
In D&D, false hope gives you +1 action but -1 wisdom. And sometimes that's better than nothing.
Dude, that's 2nd edition stuff. We're way beyond that. We're on 5th edition now, and that doesn't apply.
+1 hope
Yeah.
might give you more time to problem solve, and maybe you'll come up with a solution instead of just giving up
Yes.
before.
But how is implicitly
The end
having
is
no hope
nigh.
just giving up? Is that not just a rational reaction to what is placed before you? Is that not no hope? Because having no hope means you just have to react to what you have. Because you aren't banking on something else to happen. Just react.
I'm being very serious here. If you have no hope, you're not going to live. Like, they've done the studies on rats where they had put their dopamine all the way to 0. So the idea is to simulate no hope situations where nothing is going to give...
Rats are people.
Well, I mean, you could learn...
We have a very similar brain.
You can learn a lot.
But it's not the same. Why are we not talking to rats right now? We don't...
Okay, well, you want a real life
Sure.
example? Slave ships and fixed melancholy is what they called it. People who were taken from their homes and brought over on slave ships, they called it fixed melancholy. People just died because they had no hope. They died because they were that depressed. They just did not have the will to live anymore.
And
So
are you
they
saying
died.
that those people that were brought over on slave ships did not have religion?
No, I'm saying that if you had religion, the idea of having a false hope is better than no hope. Because the idea that if you shut down and you have no dopamine receptors available, you wouldn't even eat food. You
don't eat, you don't drink, you just lay down and
after
die.
a while you'll die. And they had the studies done on rats, and the idea that they won't even go for food even if it's right in front of them, but they will only eat it if they were hand fed it. And then the idea that you cannot just live on bread alone was kind of this idea where, man, if you remove the will and hope, and this is the plot of Diablo 3, if you don't have hope, you're going to lose.
That's generous, assuming there's a plot to Diablo 3.
There's a plot.
Such a game.
Is there,
elitist.
though? They really retconned a lot of stuff they established in Diablo 2.
There's a Diablo 2?
0 sense.
I always assumed it just went from nothing to 3 because nothing else makes sense before it. Anyway.
No. Like, Diablo 1 was the devil is trying to take over the world. Diablo 2 was like, the devil's back, but he's got his bros, you know? Then Diablo 3 was like, no, what humans believe the world is, this is where enclave between the eternal fight between good and evil. It got very big because they felt it had, it's so lost it.
I would say that, first of all, I like
Trees
Diablo
for
3.
the forest, man. Trees for the forest.
Second of all, I think the idea of religion being used as a tool against others, which is kind of like the trope in many of our wars, are because of religion or something like this.
Religion inherently makes an us
religion's
inherently
just
makes
the
an us
excuse.
versus them.
Religion is just the excuse. It's never well, I shouldn't say it's never the cause, but it's the excuse. But really,
religion
wars
facilitates
and
an us
conflict.
versus them.
Religion is very good at propaganda.
You guys, let me finish
All right,
the thought.
sorry.
Jesus Christ, I'm gonna punch you in the faces. All right.
No, we're social distance. You can't do that.
You're right. This is true. I will physically not punch you in the face, but in my head, I am wailing away. Now, what I was going to say, wars are almost never about religion in truth. It's usually about resources. Ultimately, it's about resources. That's almost always the underlying
Explain the Crusades.
reason. Well, that one I would need to know a bit more. But
you have armies from England and France going to the Middle East.
Didn't they want the homeland?
What resource was the homeland?
Jerusalem? Wasn't that
what resource did modern day Israel provide to Paris, France?
That holy place. They wanted that holy place for themselves. It was a resource.
That's the resource? Breaking rights was a resource?
They wanted to claim that, I guess.
I mean, yes, that's what the Crusades were.
They also probably wanted, money, and they wanted to take the army on an adventure and have glory and all that other blah, blah, blah bullshit.
But why can't you do that against the Germans? They've been doing that for centuries.
Because they needed the excuse of religion, so... Yep. Anyway, sorry, what?
A proper religious war that did not have a resource.
I said almost never. I said almost never.
Sorry, it went on for centuries.
It did.
My argument, though, is that we may be cherry-picking data as to why religion is bad. And when we do look at religion as, obviously the Crusades and other wars that are caused by it, I would argue that it's basically resource-based with Sera. Or that it's used as a propaganda tool to say us versus them. And so then really you can make the argument is a tool bad because it can be used by bad actors? I would say, the
gun helps. The gun helps.
God made everyone equal, but...
Well, the gun is also designed to do one thing.
Colt made them all...
That's true. Maybe comparing religion to a gun isn't quite fair. Religion does a
I don't
lot
know.
of different
That
things.
actually might be the most apropos analogy from this entire discussion. Is a gun is definitely religion because it's only meant to do one thing.
In America, it sure is. What is that one thing,
Yes,
Micah?
make
that
a religion
religion's
out
a
of that.
tool, but here's a gun, and a gun is a tool. Big ol' air quotes.
It is a tool.
Is
But
it?
it isn't. I mean, it is for one thing.
Yeah,
It's to shoot
one specific
targets.
thing. No, it's to cease life. That is a gun.
Yes. Yep.
That's its only ever effective use.
Well, no, it's also to threaten life and
no,
get
'cause
your way
you're not using
to
the gun
claim
if you're threatening
resources.
life. You use the gun to
You're-
cease life.
No. Well,
You bluff.
you can also use the gun as a threat
Yeah.
without actually shooting
But,
it.
but
You're
that
still
threat is
using it.
cessation of life. The whole crux of it is the gun ends
Yes,
life. That's
yes,
the whole point of it. Whether it's a threat or whether it's
Yes.
actually used, it does one thing, and that one thing is end life.
Well, it also facilitates the gathering of more resources,
Which is
such
the
as
same thing as religion.
money.
So
or or robbing people of their possessions.
same thing as religion. So
No, the
Okay, I think
problem
we
is
solved
that
it.
with this gun analogy, it really should be
We should
more
get rid
like
of guns and religion.
guns and gods. What was the third G again? We don't talk about it.
Good game. GG.
I would argue that in essence, religion is like the magical powder dust that may be explosive but could be used for good. And the gun is like the weaponized version of it. But really, you could use great things with, gunpowder, and you can use great things
Make
for
fireworks.
yes, yeah.
and-
There's a lot of things you can do, but it's
Nitroglycerin.
not its optimal execution of that item. I have one final question.
Fuck.
As we are all not fantasy buffs, but we like that. That's our primary escapism: is fantasy literature, fantasy
sci-fi,
media, fantasy
sure.
something. Can you tell me a religion that you would want to follow from a fantasy world? Any?
Bajinashi. That's the one I'd follow. Yep.
Okay, no
From
explanation. is
CJ
needed.
Cherry's Foreigner sequence. Yep, that's the one.
I cannot think of a fantasy established
Roll the
deity
dice.
organization that I would want to follow. No God
You-
Emperor from either Dune or Warhammer 40k. No ethereal God of Light from many
you don't want to
fantasy
join
situations.
me. You don't want to join me with the ATV and the roll of the dice.
No, I am that
Why not?
staunchly atheist that any sense of religion automatically puts me off. Even if they have an established magical use.
I think the
Technically, it's
closest
not
one would
magical. It's
be,
just arithmetic. What was it?
But,
It's
or Harlem.
something in chance. Luck and chance.
for me, the answer would be the Bobaverse. That would be the closest one.
Is there a god in the Bobaverse?
Well, one of the Bobs act like a god.
Oh, he played
He
God.
played God.
Well, no. He did not play God. He holodecked that shit.
Well, nonetheless, I mean, the idea that
He might have been the Bob, but he was not a god.
for the
He
listener.
had limitations, and those limitations were expressed onto the... Oh, fuck, what was that planet? That was the first one he went to? Whatever.
Doesn't
But
matter.
he wasn't a god.
He's
He had
basically-
limitations, and he dealt with... He thought he was a god, and then there was the one attack when he thought he was defending the tribe that came in.
Fun fact, Micah. Gods have limitations.
Yeah, they can't
That
go back in
is the
time.
antithesis to a deity. Deities should not have limitations.
Well,
Your idea of a deity should not have limitations.
Religion's
but-
ideas of a deity.
But deities set their own limitations at some point in some religions.
And that is not of the followers to dictate, which means...
But it is, because that's exactly
But
what
it is
dictates
not,
them.
because then it delineates. Why are there so many fractures of Catholicism when it's supposed to be following one God, the same God, that both Jews and Muslims follow? Oh my God. Everybody puts different limitations on what God does.
Yep.
So everybody's individual interpretation of what God is their own God. Thus, monotheism is a lie in itself.
yeah, but what about Hinduism? That's not
You're a
monotheistic,
lie.
right? I mean, that's a pretty big religion as well.
Yep.
You're very Western-centric when you say that. It's just
Yes, of course I'm
Abrahamic
Western-centric. I
religions.
focused on Europe.
No.
Hence,
You're focused
hence I
on
issued an
Europe.
apology for any Muslim listeners.
Oh, okay, fair
About
enough. Yeah,
my poor...
Good point. Good point.
I take this from a Eurocentric point of view, because Europe fucked everything over.
I mean, give China some credit.
I mean, they were fine for like 1,000 years, and then Europe got in there, and then China changed dramatically. Again, Europe, what's the problem?
I will go ahead and say it's not a negative sum. I think that we need to collect more data and not just focus on all of the ones that are so sharply negative. I feel like it's not
But
done
we're not
right.
focusing on that. We're focusing on the totality
But the totality,
of all of the good weighed against all of the bad.
well then in that case it's definitely a plus sum game, because what religion does is it plays the same tit for tat game but on an ethereal level.
No, religion in today's
No.
world
Oh, it
is
does.
a negative because it does not include all people. You are implicitly making tribes out of something that should be tribeless.
Okay, I will counter this. So let's say in one nation you have Christianity as a religion. So in game theory, you want everyone to be trusting of each other, because when both parties trust each other, the sum of that effort and value is greater than both of them combined.
But this is ignoring interactions between other countries, which our world is. You cannot
Let's-
ignore.
Moving
Let's let
on,
Phil finish
Micah.
his thought.
For that one country, let's just scope it in because otherwise it gets kind of messy. For one country, let's just say you have a game theory where you want your citizens to trust each other, because when they work together cooperatively, the value that they both produce is greater than them individually. However, when they both defect, the value that they produce is less than them both individually. But again, the game theory would dictate that if one person backstabs and the other one doesn't, it benefits just one person and not the other. Now, the Nash equilibrium point would be that everyone should backstab each other. Okay, fair enough. Like, this has just been talked to death over Prisoner's Dilemma all the time. And even in repetitive games, you'll still get the same conclusion. The most stable action is tit for tat, except for when religion is involved. Why? Because it changes the rules of the game. Because now you add a dimension of fucking bullshit that doesn't make any goddamn sense. You just insert it like a virus. And what that bullshit is, oh, you didn't know this? But if you backstab that person, you go to even deeper hell.
No sky cake for
No
you.
sky,
But then if you
not
have
just
an
no sky
entire
cake.
state prescribing to that sky
God
cake,
damn it, Micah, listen to me. God damn it, Micah.
Let him
me
finish his
finish
thought.
my goddamn statement.
just remember this is
If
what you wanted,
you
Phil.
add the game theory element that if you backstab someone, you get negative infinity points. You're going to hell. Now, fashionably now, we don't tell people they're going to hell, but back in the day, it was very much needed. And then on the other side of it, you say, oh, well, if you get backstabbed, don't worry, you're going to heaven. Now you just changed what the metrics are going to be. In fact, now the vast majority of fools, if they believe in this, which they would because it got indoctrinated as an early age, are all going to do the trust move, even though it makes no sense because the points don't get added until you're dead, but at that time, who gives a shit? Now, if the majority of your country are in trust moves position, then you will overpower every other country that is going to backstab their own citizens because they're going to be super fucking weak. They don't have the specialization of blacksmiths. They don't have the ability to branch out. Their nation people are just going to be easy fucking lunch for someone who has their shit together. And how did they get their shit together? It's because they believe in some weird imaginary points. But that's just enough for them to say, tit for tat is not a good strategy. You want everyone to trust each other. How do you do that magically? You have to add magic to it.
Question. If it's tit for tat, but everyone's playing that tit for tat game, and the starting position is trust, like it's never going to be
If everyone prescribes
negative.
to that said circumstances of tit for
that's
tat.
what I'm saying, right?
When you're dealing...
Not true.
Not true?
Not true. If everyone starts
In country A.
trust.
Peaceful.
In country
In
A.
peaceful,
country
right.
A,
Peaceful.
and they interact with country B
Right.
that is something different, that changes the whole dichotomy, and that could collapse country A.
It could, but you're thinking about it that country A is going to be weak. But if they had a starting time, which most history would say that eventually through random elements, you'll have a country that has enough starting time to be very trusting. And then now they interact at the right time at the right place. Again, everything is luck. And now they interact. Now they actually are way fucking better because, again, if two people cooperate, their value together is greater than individual. And then you multiply that and compound it for generations. By the time they interact with a nation that are just fucking idiots by playing tit for tat, they will fucking trounce them.
Tit for tat with backstabbing.
Tit for tat for backstabbing. Now the question, like, well, what about for people that are all trusting? Well, you can't really do that because the variation in the population are always going to produce people that are going to be like fucking assholes.
Yep.
But still,
Yeah,
you can
no.
trick fucking assholes by saying, yeah, but the rules of the game are still the
But
same.
Sky Cake.
Sky Cake.
Yep.
And so to magically change the rules, you need magic
But
added.
what stops country A from using their sky cake to artificially and obfuscatingly deceive country B for country A's implicit exploitation?
It's benefit for country A.
So then that's using their religion as exploitation, which is a bad thing, because they are using that against country B that has a different type of religion. So they're forcing country A's religion into country B for the sake of their own exploitation, which is a net negative for religion A from country A.
No. No, because the idea of
the exploitation of Africa was fine by Europe.
No, I'm not saying that
that's what you're saying. Because Europe had
a
unified religion, and they went into a place that had a fractured religion, and they used their state religion in order to exploit the places with fractured religion. So that was fine. That was fine.
It's not fine.
But that's game theory, so they played the game correctly then. So they used their religion as an abusive tactic for the sake of manipulating a place that had no understanding of that religion, but they forced it as fact upon them, and that was good.
It's not good. It's luck.
No, that's not luck. That's
again.
Good. It's good, because might makes right. They use their religion the way they perceive their religion to be used to fuck over other people who do not believe in their religion.
You're confusing a few elements together. That luck is good and power and might. You're confusing them because they're exactly right. Might is right. And that's just the way it has been since fucking forever. And the idea that you're saying that religion is bad, it's not true as an aggregate.
It's a tool to be exploited, like anything else. That's all religion is. It is a tool to be exploited.
No,
show me a situation where it is not being exploited as a tool.
It's a tool for defense as well. It's the same analogy as the gun. You either use it to attack somebody or use it to defend yourself. And for religions like before Cortez went to
purpose. The end execution of the use of that, whether it's an action or a threat, is death. You're saying that religion is not that. Religion gives you hope. Religion gives you this. So the analogy of the religion and the gun is only good if you think the gun can be used for good. A gun is only there to kill. That is the point of a gun.
Yeah, but sometimes killing is good.
Wait, what is this, Miss Anti-Death Penalty?
Hunting.
Wait, ad hominem attack. Also, flag on the field.
Also, yeah.
That's not the topic.
Micah.
Also, 10-yard penalty. Fuck you. No, I agree with
Sorry,
you,
Micah. But I still get first down because it was a good point.
You do get first down. You do. You have an excellent point. I cannot defend it. If Nation A does the thing I say to, I recommend, they will totally.
Then they come across Nation B. Nation B doesn't believe in that religion, and they're fractured because there is, a lot of small religions in there. Nation A will trump them, but that is bad for religion A that unified Nation A.
It is long-term, short-term, really fucking horrible. I agree with that. But the idea that everyone becomes lunch is just the way we live. And I'm not saying that if you say that, then you just said it's okay for neocolonialism. No. We live in a world where people want to eat other human beings for lunch. That's just the way it is. And the problem with saying that religion is bad because it provides more bullies to eat lunch, like the poor and the weak, I will have to say that you're right. As an aggregate, maybe religion is fucking terrible because it allows Nation A to
exploitive society. It's not pillar, it is a pillar.
Doesn't religion sometimes, in some ways, equalize the playing field for
example?
Otherwise it would be just might makes right. In this whatever combative religion used as a tool, the gun, the religion levels the playing field with someone who's physically stronger. It's a tool you can use against someone who's physically stronger to convince them that no, what you think you want to do to bully me is wrong. Because I have a gun, I have religion, I have sky cake, and you can have sky cake too.
Yes, to establish society, it was important to delineate that. But after you have a civilization, then it becomes exploitive. There's a point of diminishing returns in terms of when religion is good, and then when it is wholly bad, because whatever good it provides is grossly outweighed by the bad it requires to sustain itself to be relevant in a populace.
It is the definition of the gun. You can use it to defend others or you can use it to kill. And I would say that for religion, in the pure sense of the form, and that's game theory, you're exactly right. Country A would just dominate everybody by the gun. And that's exactly what history has shown.
That's kind of colonialism.
So that was probably that is exactly what happened with colonialism. And was that a net positive? I would say that's fucking horrific what they did. So yeah, fair enough, Micah, you're right. So I guess you disproving my whole fucking theory about it just in one quick statement. So good for you. Yeah.
It takes a lot of yelling and meandering, but eventually I come to a point.
Well,
No, you're right. Yeah,
I
that's
just
fucking
want
terrible.
to tweak Micah's thing. It's not wholly bad, but it is net bad.
At a point, there's a diminishing return. And we are well
Yes.
beyond that point of getting more good out of religion than bad.
Yes. Agreed. And that was my statement. Or that was my isn't it obvious?
Yeah.
Which maybe it wasn't as obvious.
Hey, an hour in, we finally got there after many beers.
We needed an entire hour to talk about
Fuck.
it. But again, I'm not saying religion is wholly bad. It's just mostly bad.
It's wholly with a W bad. It's not wholly with an H bad.
Yeah.
Next time on Atheist Anti-Establishment, I can't think of another A, podcast.
Asshole.
Right,
Advocate.
but I don't know. Or take, because that fucks up. No,
Argumentative?
No, I've already fucked up the rhyme. It doesn't matter. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. You can't. The alliteration is the word you're looking for, but that's fine. All right.
That would have worked. Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom.
Anti-atheist.